This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we're talking about something I honestly can't even believe that it's taken 90 some episodes to even get to, and that is what it means to own your firm. And I mean, I don't mean that like in a literal sense. Obviously, if you're running a firm, you're likely the owner, you started it, whatever the case is. That's not what I'm talking about. What I really mean is just, making sure that your firm works for you rather than you working for it. Another way to think about it is maybe spending more time working on your firm instead of working in your firm, something like that. But to help kind of make this a little bit more obvious, because I'm probably not doing it the proper justice, we are joined by business coach and entrepreneur, Pete Mohr. Pete, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Just an absolute pleasure to be here, talk with another bald dude with a little bit of facial hair,
Exactly. Yeah, that's you have to go with facial hair if you don't have anything.
Yeah. Yours is a little longer
variety
than mine.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, before we jump in, I mean, why are we talking to you this week? Why are you the guy who to talk about, this sort of concept?
Well, I've spent 27 years 28 years now, I guess, as an entrepreneur, and always had my own business. And most of the time I've had several businesses at the same time. And this idea around, I call it you own your business and it shouldn't own you, from that perspective, as far as the language there. But, so many entrepreneurs, John, get mired down, they have this dream of owning their business, and they either start a business or buy a business or, somehow become the business owner. A variety of different ways of doing that. But, they, within doing that, they're looking and they have this vision, and they're saying, this is going to create a better life for me and my family. If they have a family, they're thinking about all those things, as we do when we're making an investment and all this other stuff, making big decisions in life. And owning your own business is a big decision. So from that perspective, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, sometimes 20 years down the road, you look back and you're like, if I remember why I got in business, I'm not sure that I'm actually achieving some of those things. And it's like, to have the better life, maybe it's because I want to spend more time with my family. I want to live in health. I want to live in a certain area of the country. I want to, all these different things, and they're uniquely your wants, or were your wants, and maybe they've changed, and that's fine too. But what's happened often is they look back and they say, I'm still working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I have not got out of this. I have not actually lived any of the things that I dreamed of, other than just lived in my business, whether they're within the walls or whether it's a virtual business. But it's that time spent, right? Because time is finite. And one of the coaches that I've had along the way basically lays it out like this: there are only 24 hours in a day. You can't buy more and you can't use less. And if you're spending that all on work and not enjoying your relationships and not in good health and not having time to do some of the things you did when you first signed up to be a business owner, then it's time to sort of reframe that and look at stuff. And that's mostly the people that I work with, John, they have a little bit more money now,
right?
But some of these other, what I call their freedoms, are not there. And they're frustrated by the fact that they're not there. So it's like, how do we take them out of frustration into freedom and align them so that they have a turnkey business that's actually working for them, and they're going to enjoy doing what they do in their work, and maybe start laying some of that stuff off to other people and having them hold accountabilities. A lot of times when we start business, you do everything, right?
Right.
Like money's tight. And for a lot of people, unless you're, came from a really wealthy family, and, money is an issue and stuff like that. But for most entrepreneurs, money's tight. And it's kind of like, I got to do this. I have to know this. I have to know this. And if you've done that for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and you've been involved in every single decision, you've created a habit. And that habit basically is, I need to do this.
Yeah.
But, giving the authority, giving the permission to say, no, you don't have to do this. There are other people that are probably even better than you are at it out there. Let's align that, set up the processes. I've created this model called the 5 Ps, and it's really around understanding what the promise is of the business, aligning your product, your process, and your people to that so that you can enjoy the right amount of profit. And we reframe that profit. Well, that profit is not just the dollars, because like I said, some business owners out there have enough dollars now, but they're saying, I want to take some of these dollars and move them into some of the areas of my life so that I can enjoy some of these other freedoms that I've been missing for the last several years, or, and it really often revolves around time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
we just released a big trends report, just, surveyed our audience, got a ton of data. And I mean, that was one of the big patterns that developed is, I mean, our audience, lawyers, financial pros specifically, they just never feel like they have enough time
Right.
to do everything properly.
Hmm.
Right. And look, I mean, and I think, you kind of hinted at it. I mean, you're not, if you're going to try to do everything, you're not going to ever have enough time to do
Can't do
everything
it.
properly. And one thing that you mentioned earlier, that struck a chord with me. I think a lot of entrepreneurial minded people are more of that visionary type. They're
Yeah.
always up here looking at a 10,000-foot view. They're great with
Hmm.
ideas. They have this grand vision for what they want their life to be. They see these other business owners doing that, living that life. They want a piece of that. And where they oftentimes struggle is in the execution of that plan, right?
Yeah.
They can come up with great ideas all day, but then they don't have the energy or the follow through to actually execute on that plan and actually bring it to life. And for me, that's one of the big frustrations that I've seen with a lot of business owners and all that, along with just that desire to want to be able to control everything and have their fingerprint on everything. And
Yeah.
so, between having all the ideas but not great execution, but then also not wanting to relinquish a lot of the control on things, what are some of the other kind of frustrations that you've seen that have kind of prevented or at least slowed the process of these business owners down from kind of achieving that freedom and that happiness that they're going after?
Well, it's really those in particular, those couple of P's that we talked about, which are the big ones always, process and people.
Hmm.
And it usually boils down to the fact that they haven't set up the process in their business to allow and assign accountability. So when we look at any of these sort of red flags, I like things in frameworks, John. So I've got another framework, and it's really, when stuff bad is happening, you need to assess it, address it, align it, and assign it.
Hmm.
So assess it, address it, align it, and assign it. So assess what the problem is. Like where's the bottleneck here? Address
Hmm.
it. What do we need to do to make things change here? Align it with all of the other pieces and parcels of the business and your people, and then assign it. And that means assign accountability. Don't just put somebody's name on the organizational chart and you're still making all the decisions, which is another
Right.
fault of so many business owners out there. It's like so many business owners. Oh yeah, we have an organizational chart. Well, are you actually making those decisions? Because then there's no accountability for that person, and it's just a title. So
Right.
is it a title or an accountability? And the word, and one of the books that I love, that Gino Wickman wrote, it's called Traction. And
Yes.
he uses this framework. It's where I first heard it, and I'm sure it's been out there, but I use it too because I think it's great. It's called an accountability chart, not an
Yep.
organizational chart. Who is actually accountable for all of these different things? And if you find yourself as the owner still making the decision on all those things, that needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we run that system here at Spotlight Branding too. And I mean, for people who may not be familiar with, I mean, it's kind of a similar concept to an organizational chart, but the accountability language is what's key there. And you have the owner up at the top. It's usually split between like a visionary and an integrator.
Yep.
The visionary, I use that term kind of specifically,
Yeah.
because that's that idea person. That's, the real entrepreneurial mind. The integrators, a little bit more execution, taking the ideas, really bringing them to life,
Making them happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have kind of your standard structure. You have your department heads and you have the seats underneath them, but everyone has typically, I think, 3 to 5 roles, on their seat, people can occupy multiple seats. I mean, we are currently in that right now, and
Sure.
this doesn't need to be like a whole podcast on traction, but
No.
you know, the as an owner, to your point, you don't need to just have these, sort of accountabilities on paper, but you're still making the decisions. But like, you also don't need to occupy every single seat. You
Gosh,
know,
no.
you may
Shouldn't.
have
You
to,
shouldn't.
yeah, you may have to occupy multiple seats here and there. I mean, currently right now, our owner's occupying a second seat just based on a need, but we're in the process of getting him back out of that because
Right.
God knows we don't need him there. He's the owner. He needs to
Mhm.
be, that's what he's here
Yeah.
for. And so, yeah, I love that, taking that approach to it,
Yeah. It's
and
a good
and
approach.
just keeping everything separate, and being able to just trust that you have a good team in place who can take it. And you talk about processes. We're huge on processes. Make sure that all of your processes are documented, and so that it's easy to do. We joke about it a lot. I mean, if Mark, our owner, got hit by a bus, you know, could the
Yeah.
business keep going? Could someone come in off the street and keep things running without? And if you don't have that, then your business is gonna may not completely fail, but it's gonna really, really suffer.
Yeah, I had that conversation with a client yesterday, as a matter of fact. She's a new client and she's owned a dance studio for 30 years, really successful dance studio, does really well and good numbers and
Mhm.
all that sort of stuff. But you know what? There's still a lot of decisions that are being made by her every day.
Mhm.
And that's got to change, right? She
Yeah,
wants it to change. And it's like, okay, what do I need to do? So
yeah.
let's roll through this. And we're having this language chat. And, around this, I love this idea that every decision in your business should be made at the lowest possible level.
Mhm.
So every decision in the business should be made at the lowest possible level. So until you assign accountability, because if people don't feel confident in actually making that decision at that level, they're going to need to go up that organizational chart or accountability chart in order to get the go ahead, right? But how does that affect your client? Your client doesn't want you to have to ask this. They just want the answer, right? How
Mhm.
does it affect the sort of recurring revenue? How does it affect all of the other things that go in combination with that? How does it affect the time that it takes to get something done? When you look at that with clarity, if you have clarity in every position within your organization and they have the accountability to answer the questions, then there shouldn't be a whole lot of confusion, which is also the thing that happens when there's no clarity and accountability. There's always this muddle of confusion and nobody seems to know. So what do? They go and they talk to the owner and the owner
Yep.
has the answer. Well, you know what? It's time to start, making that happen in a success in a way that actually makes things happen at the lowest level so that you don't need to be involved. There's only so many decision making juices that you have in a day.
Yeah.
Why are you using them on things that should be made 3 levels below you?
Right. Yeah. And also, just to put it real simply, I mean, if you have all of your processes and your systems documented,
Yep,
you're going to write it in such a way that people understand kind of what decision you would have made in a given situation or how you would have done something.
for
And so
sure.
you have that there. So if you have that listed out, that people are following it, then you don't have to feel like you have to continue making those decisions because people are going to be doing it the way you want it done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, how do we get out of this, always working in our business, always putting out fires, always doing this stuff that we're talking about, never being able to chance to work on strategy and some of the things that we truly love as business owners? Well, we need to assign this stuff. We need to address it, assess it, align it, and assign it so
Yeah.
that they go on to the accountability chart and let that person be accountable. Most business owners think, well, they don't want to be accountable, but in fact, they probably really do want to be accountable. That's why they're working with you. They
Yeah.
believe in your promise, which is that first P. They
Mhm.
believe in what you do and how you do it and what you're doing for your clients and how you're making their lives even better.
Yeah.
That's why they're working there. They believe in your leadership and all of the other stuff. And if you've communicated with clarity all these things, then they're going to make the right decision. And your opportunity, leader of business, is to come in and help them in times of a little bit of confusion around that, where maybe you haven't clarified process quite properly, or maybe
Yeah.
it's a unique situation. But so long as they're always going back to the promise and they're saying, well, hey, we made this decision based on the fact that the core thing that we do, the promise to our clients is this, and that's why we made that, because it's so clear, then you can have the chance to have a what I call a crucial conversation with them, and just, have a little, hey, that was great. I now understand why you've made this decision. Next time, let's look at maybe doing it this way, and then changing your process so that sometimes, when we have that conversation and we work out what's the best way down the road, then we change our process so that if it ever happens again, it's in place. And
Yeah.
as you're doing that, it doesn't happen overnight, but as you're doing that consistently over the course of time, over months and over years, it just becomes like clockwork. And that's when you have developed a turnkey business that, as when you were talking about the owner's box, when you're in the owner, then your owner's box, you're really in a situation. And I'm very grateful to have this sort of situation with, we own a couple of shoe stores called Shoetopia here in Canada. And, I'm pretty much in the owner box. I don't do a lot of work with that store anymore because I have all of the stuff in place. My jobs there are more around strategic direction and some of that other stuff of what we're trying to do. And that's where I like to play in that business, right? I spend most of my time with this business, helping other business owners get to that point within their businesses. And so, it's really interesting. I'll use another example. Last week, my parents I had to take off some time because my parents, we've been waiting to get them into a retirement home. And you know what? One popped up and it's like, hey, listen, I had just been on vacation and I said to my team, listen, I'm going to go 5 hours away and help my parents move into a retirement home, and see you in another week. And they said, yeah, see you in another week. Life will go on. Things will happen. Everything will, don't worry about it, Pete. And when you're
Yeah.
in a situation like that, then it's a really freeing experience to say, listen, I can look at another business. So, some people will say, well, how do you run multiple businesses all the time? Because you set up these structures within your businesses so that you can then, if you choose to run a different business, or maybe buy rental properties, or maybe take some more vacation that you weren't taking in the past, or whatever those freedoms are that you want. If you have the right amount of profit and you've set up all of these things with the 5 Ps underneath you so that it's supporting you as the owner,
Yeah.
then that's when life gets pretty interesting, and you can start living some of those things that you thought about when you first became a business owner.
Yeah. And one of the biggest accomplishments that our owner kind of brags about, I think it was December of 2020, which, to accomplish anything in 2020 was just an extra feat
Yeah.
to do. But he took the entire month of December off,
Yeah.
and just said, hey, I'm going to be gone. Don't contact me. I'm just going to be off the grid.
Mhm.
You guys handle everything. And we had our best sales month ever as a company in that month
Yeah.
without him there.
It's like,
And
get
in
out of your way,
December,
right?
right?
Yeah.
And in December, when most of our audience is taking the final 2 weeks of the month off, to just
Yeah.
for the holidays and everything. And so being able to build a business like that, and you can have the freedom to just take an entire month off and not
Mm.
have to worry about coming back to a billion different fires that you have to put out, is really where a lot of those rewards start.
Yeah. So true. I mean, I know your main listening audience are professionals, lawyers and accountants and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. And I work with a lot of those kind of people as well. And, time, as coaches, we sell our time as well, right? I mean, that's,
Mhm.
so I totally understand that sort of framework. And, understanding this idea around where you're spending your time and making sure, I call it prime priority, making sure
Mhm.
that it's in your prime priority at all given times, and starting to unload. When we look back at the second P, which is your product or your services, understanding which product or services that you're offering within your business are truly the ones you need to spend the time on. And sometimes that product and service, as the owner, is one of your team members. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily one of your clients. It's better to spend at $450 an hour, that hour with one of your team members, so you can assign accountability, so they can do a whole bunch of other stuff that's already on your plate. And
Yeah.
that kind of framework tends to get missed in a lot of professional systems as well. And it's like, listen, you know what? When you can start doing some of this stuff, offloading some of these things that you're doing in your 40, 50, 60-hour work week, then that's when the multiplier effect starts happening, right? And it's like, oh, I'm starting to feel good. I want to offload a bit more. I want to offload a bit more. Not saying you want to offload everything, because there's conversations that you want to have with your clients and there's certain things that you want to do. But from that perspective, it's like, how do you want to set this up for a busy tax season? How do you want to set this up for a busy legal season, whatever the case is, so that you can enjoy some of the benefits of being the business owner? And it's a strategic structure that needs to be thought about, and it does take time to actually implement.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's the starting point for even going down this path? I mean, is it getting the processes documented like we talked about earlier, or does it start somewhere else?
To me, it starts with the owner and having a true understanding of what the vision is. So let's reel it back to that first time when you bought the business, and understanding, it's like, okay, well, what actually do I want outside of work?
Yeah.
Because as business owners, we're yin and yang with our personal and our business life. So I usually start those conversations around, okay, let's just take a half day or a couple of hours and sort of build what it is that you want out of your business. What do you want your business to help you deliver in your life? And that goes around with, what's your personal mission? What do you want out of your health? Here's another great quote. The man who has, or woman, has his health has 1,000 dreams, and the person that doesn't has but one. If you're not healthy, you can't run a healthy business, and you can't have a healthy life.
Yeah.
So what do you want out of your health? What do you want out of your wealth? What do you want out of your relationships, both personally and professionally?
Yeah.
What do you want out of your mission? What do you want out of your free time? What do you want? What would you actually like to do that you haven't been doing? Let's pull all of that stuff out, so then we can map it back in to your work week and your work life and all of the other things, and align and assign the accountabilities that need to help you make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's usually where I start. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I think working with a coach, or someone like you who can really conceptualize this and condense a lot of those ideas and kind of map it out is so beneficial for a lot of entrepreneurs. Because I mean, like I said, like a lot of them, it's just a million ideas a day.
For sure.
They know what they want. It's just it's transitioning and getting into that mindset of getting it down in there and making it happen. One thing I did want to ask you about before we wrap up here, you talk a lot about the wheel of momentum, and I feel like you've in a couple of instances you've kind of hinted at it, but like really break it down. I mean, what is it? What is a wheel of momentum?
Yeah. Well, wheel momentum's another model that actually we
Right.
haven't chatted about. And, like I said, I like to put things in frameworks that make sense, right?
Yeah.
And so when we look at the wheel of momentum, just to run it through fairly quickly, and it's on my website at simplifyingentrpreneurship.com, but actually it's right above one of the lawyers that has been one of my clients over the last while. He's a great guy. But this idea around the wheel itself, the structure, it begins with clarity. So when you think of anything in your business, it always begins with clarity and getting full clarity. So we just talked about, where do you start? Well, you start about getting clarity of what you want out of your business and what you want it to deliver to you, so that you can go back and get the confidence, which is the second C, get the confidence of what it is you need to do, and then the competence. So you're aligning the competence, right? So confidence can be, you need to have a certain amount of confidence to move ahead. But if you're overconfident, it can also stall things and burn you. Being overconfident can be burned. So from that side of things, and we roll into the competence side of things. And when you're starting to build competence is either internally or external. So you can build your internal competencies, or you can actually hire other people or find other AIs or there's so many great apps and different things there to help you with your competence. Then you're looking for cooperation. Who can help you get to where you want to be, as far as when you're looking at the momentum, having the clarity of where it is we want to go. Now I'm feeling good about it. I'm starting to align my competencies, and now I'm saying, who either on my team or outside of my team, cooperation, or maybe an affiliate, or maybe another firm that's partner that will partner with us to make this happen. Because when we do that, we build capacity. Capacity is the 5th C. And it's like, okay, now I'm starting to build capacity and I can see this thing happening. And we have what it takes with all these other things in alignment. And then when you have the capacity and the momentum is starting to build, now you're at that stage again as the quick start. You've used a lot of sort of Colby language here today, but as the quick start, or the visionary, or however you want to say it, it's like, now I can be creative again, because I couldn't be creative when those other things weren't working, because I was working in the business, not on it, in order to make that momentum happen, and whatever that little piece was that we were working through on the wheel of momentum. And now I've got capacity and I'm feeling good about it, confident. I've got my pieces in place. I can now go back and be strategic again. I can start using some of those ideas. I can start pulling them back out, and I can say, now what are we going to do? Oh, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get clarity, confidence, competence, cooperation, capacity, and that wheel just keeps rolling. And that's how the momentum goes from where it's at to build and build and build and build and build, so that your business is like that. And hopefully your life is like that too.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many different avenues that we could go down, because I mean, I think a lot of what we've talked about today is really the starting point, because you get all this in place. You talk about best ways to document your systems. You talk about good hiring practices to get a team of rock stars who is going to help execute your vision. You talk about marketing, which is what our specialty is, in getting your message out there and what's going to help drive revenue. You talk about creating a good, culture inside your firm that's going to help retain people. I mean, you mentioned it kind of up at the start. When you have people who care about and are invested in your mission, they're going to stick around longer. They're going to push forward and do a good job. And there's so many other things that can spur off of this. So this has been really, really insightful, really, really great conversation. How can people reach out to you, learn more about you, maybe even potentially start working with you and build some momentum and all that?
Best way is to listen to the podcast at Simplifying Entrepreneurship, or go to simplifyingentrpreneurship.com. And I've got a great assessment right there that kind of goes through and green lights and red lights some of the stuff around your business. Takes about 10 minutes and spits you back about a 40-page PDF of all kinds of good information. So yeah, simplifyingentrpreneurship.com, or if you're on social channels, I'm having a hard one with that today, on LinkedIn or on Instagram, Facebook, at Pete Mohr, MOHR.
Awesome. Love it. One final question for you before we wrap everything up here. I try to ask all of our guests here this question, and it's, if you had one final piece of advice for our audience out there, what would it be?
Take action. I mean, it's as simple as that. We can talk, John, all day long. You can listen to as many podcasts, read as many books. I got a bunch of books behind me here for people who are watching on video. But if you're reading the stuff, looking at the stuff, listening to the stuff, and doing nothing, then nothing is going to change. So the best thing to do is think about something that maybe we've talked about here today and take action on it now.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback on that, especially just based on what we've talked about today, is get help to do it. I mean, especially if you're spinning your wheels, you have all these ideas, man, I just, reach out to someone like Pete, another business coach that you trust, whatever the case is. And because they can at least put you on the right track, so that instead of spinning your wheels, you can just fire off and really run down the line. And so, love all of that. There's a really great conversation. Just a lot of great perspective. I'm really happy with how this turned out. That's going to do it for us this week here on Center Stage. Continue to rate and review us wherever you're consuming the show. And that's going to do it. We'll see you next week. Pete, thank you so much for joining us.
Make it a great day.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.